Well, let's introduce ourselves first.
Oh, good point, Jessica.
Okay, my name is Jessica.
Hi, I'm Beverly.
I'm Elizabeth.
The MiraCosta Filmmakers podcast.
Woohoo!
Yeah, we haven't done a podcast in a very long time, since like the whole COVID outbreak and all that, but we're back.
We're back, picking up where we left off, kind of, too, with the movie night of the Joker, which we didn't get to screen before. I immediately knew where we were and what the atmosphere of this world was.
Is this like one of the only DC things you've seen, or like what?
I lean more towards DC than Marvel. I did have low expectations going into this movie because of just the terrible job I thought Jared Leto did as the Joker.
Yeah, I agree. I felt the same way, like, because I did not like Suicide Squad, so I thought that this would just be another one of those cash grab films from every single DC movie and Marvel movie has been in the past few years. Just kind of a cash grab. This movie definitely surprised me because it was like a movie that was actually well made,
It was really impressive.
But what I really liked about it was how it was discussing the mental health care system and how we really don't have one, and how it's been defunded and there's not enough support, and the whole thing about how he was on his medication and then he couldn't get his medication anymore, and there just was no real support from anywhere for him to help him find another job and be able to afford the medication.
That was a huge thing that popped out for me, just this movie talking about mental health in general. And I feel like that's why this movie spoke to a lot of people in the moment that it came out. Mental health is something that's becoming more widely talked about these days, because there's just so much crap going on in the world right now. It's making people more crazy, more depressed, more anxious and everything. So this was a movie that a lot of people just kind of cling to.
I don't like how there are kind of a lot of origin stories about villains, and they kind of tend to try to, make you sympathize. But like in this case, I think that it worked.
Something I'm a huge sucker for is stories that have anti-heroes, and there's lots of other films or TV shows out there that have anti-heroes where they make you follow a character that's not good, but they still somehow make you feel sorry for them in some way and make you understand things from their perspective. And I think that's really interesting, and it's like one of my favorite character type.
And I think what you said about understand is really important. And it goes back to what Elizabeth was talking about with mental health and how this is really a film not to villainize. It almost feels like they're explaining and telling you why he is the way he is and getting you to like understand that he is a person and not just this villain,
Yeah, definitely.
And the way they tied it in at the end with Batman also was just so cool. They made the story their own, right? Like they developed the Joker character, how they saw him, but then, I don't know, it did feel then they brought it all back in the end.
The main character, Arthur, the actor who played him, whatever his name was, I forgot.
Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, Joaquin Phoenix. He's so famous these days. Like everyone's talking about him. I think such an important part in telling a story is having a strong, likable protagonist that you can follow throughout the entire movie. And this movie had that. Like, it's all about Joker. It's all about him. It's all about Arthur. And that's the most interesting part of the movie. And when you can have a character, a strong protagonist like that, what's good about that is they can elevate every single scene, because every single scene is about them. Every single scene has them in it. And so there will not ever be a second of boredom, because you're always going to be entertained by them.
And you're always going to be rooting for him, right?
Exactly. And I think that's like one of the most important things that you need to develop in writing a story, is figuring out who your main character is and what do they want and their goals and everything like that, and having just that really strong protagonist, because that's like one of the main foundations in a story. And usually if you see a movie or a show or any story that's just really, really boring, it's usually because their main character sucks.
Or you don't care about them.
Yeah, exactly.
What do we think is the antagonist?
Definitely the Murray guy, because in the climax or like the resolution of the film, he's the guy that gets shot, and that's usually typically how it works. The protagonist faces the antagonist.
In a class I had with Jeff Ingman, Intro to Performance, he talked about you will know when the climax is. When someone shoots someone in the head on live television, I think that's, you can't ignore that is the climax of the movie,
Definitely.
right?
I feel like the antagonist is society as a whole. Like he's like against society as a whole, and then Murray is like kind of like a symbol of that.
This guy can't get a break. It's like one thing after the other.
And I remember Elizabeth mentioned that the Murray guy just seems so fake nice. And that's really something representative of our society. There's so many people that are just fake, that are just doing things for the wrong reasons and things like that. That can be really frustrating to people that are not like that, to just encounter people like that constantly. It can just be really draining.
It kills him a little bit at a time. It kills his, I think we see him, and the reason we're rooting for him is because we see that if things had gone differently, he could have been a different person.
Yeah, this movie definitely does make you feel sorry for him, and makes you want to like get mad at every single person that's fucking with him, you know? It makes you feel like everything around him is like to blame for his horrible actions. No, he's not responsible for killings or whatever the horrible things that he does in the film. It doesn't make you think like that. It makes you think like, no, he has the right to do that because all these people around him keep pushing him to act that way because everyone else keeps acting all shitty towards him.
Going back to what Elizabeth said about society, it makes you hate the people who are like doing these things to him, but it also, I think, makes you hate the society and makes you also understand then why this uprisal at the end, it's so justified.
The ending is just so satisfying. It starts out so simple in the beginning. He starts out as like this guy that seems so nice and so pleasant because like he's helping out his mom. He's making people laugh. Like he's a good guy. And then he goes from that to like starting causing riots out in the street, like to go from like point A to point B, like to something so extreme. Like that's good storytelling.
You could strip everything, the beautiful music, you could strip away the lighting, all of it, and I think it would still be a good story.
What really worked for me is the psychological elements to it, which I think is something really important for a story to have. Psychology and writing are really two things that go hand in hand. When you're writing characters, you have to understand how they are, how they function, their motivations. So I think psychology and studying psychology is a really helpful tool to help you become a better writer. And this movie really emphasizes that really well. So you can tell that these writers who worked on this movie definitely knew psychology and probably studied the field a lot before they made this movie. I don't know. I don't want to get like too political because we're supposed to be talking about film, but definitely a huge issue is the incarceration system. People will they focus too much on punishment rather than like rehabilitation. If you commit a crime, you just get put behind bars, and then that just kind of makes you more crazy. And then when people get released, they just go back out and they commit crimes again, and then nothing gets solved.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying though about film not being political, or like we shouldn't talk about it because we don't want to get too political, but I think this film is political, and I think it's speaking to the fact that we need to pay attention to this stuff like you're saying, because we have to. And I think it's the most effective way to do it. We have now gone into this character's head. We can't hate him because we know his story.
The thing is that there's so many people that don't have the patience to like learn about politics and get into politics and go out and vote. But a lot of people would rather sit down and watch a movie. So it definitely is a smart way to kind of manipulate people into understanding these messages more. And so I think it's good for movies to have political messages in them.
Because it touches us, in our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked the acting. I think everybody in the movie did a really good job. Not just Joaquin Phoenix. Robert De Niro was interesting. Such a small, kind of like a small role for him. I always think about other movies that actors have been in. So I that kind of reminded me of Taxi Driver, and that was an interesting movie for me because it's probably my favorite movie that has an anti-hero in it and a lot of violence. And I liked the mom and how it was kind of showing the effect of mental health in a family, and how even though I don't think they were biologically related, him being in that environment, it's still
nature versus nurture.
Yeah, because I do think that if you grow up in a really bad environment that's it's really hard to escape from that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting you brought up Taxi Driver, because I totally thought the same thing. I think there are a lot of parallels between this movie and Taxi Driver, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, with the character and you kind of sympathize with him, but then he also kind of goes. He's very problematic as well.
I haven't seen it. What's it about?
Well, it's about a guy who's in New York, and it's kind of the same thing where he's kind of isolated. He's kind of he lives in this crummy apartment or something. He's kind of alone. He at one point he kind of gets kind of obsessed with this girl. So that's kind of another parallel. He tries to go out with her, but he totally screws everything up with that. And so then he ends up with this messed up idea that he's going to assassinate this political figure. And so he comes up with this whole plan, but he fails at that. And so then after that, he meets this underage prostitute, and then he comes up with this idea that he's going to help her. And then he ends up going on this big violent shootout at the end, and then he ends up getting hailed as a hero, even though he is kind of still a really problematic figure. And that's the best I can explain it.
That's a great explanation, and it was made even better by the fact that there is a cat being a baby.
I could hear that.
And Elizabeth, you had talked about all the different actors, all those supporting characters.
Mm-hmm.
It was necessary for them to equally be against him.
And I thought that Robert De Niro did a good job of not overacting. It being that talk show host, it could have been been more overacting, but he wasn't. And he's also a really big star. It was a kind of a minor role for him. And he was kind of quiet at parts, and then he in this, it was kind of interesting in the scene with Phoenix, and how Phoenix is how I just really felt Robert De Niro did a really good job of looking like he was really listening to Phoenix's character, and I just thought that was really interesting.
I think the best actors truly know how to give the stage to other people, or the spotlight.
They know how to do small roles well as big roles.
This movie was very particular with their casting, and they cared a lot about finding the right actor to play the right role.
And I think it goes back to it's a testament to the director knowing exactly what he wanted. He had the vision. It was so real, right?
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't you even relate to him at certain moments?
Yeah, definitely. You could understand the struggle that he's going through, even if you're not exactly like him. You can understand his motivations and the reason why he's doing what he's doing. And I feel that's how you should write any character. You don't have to necessarily relate to that character completely. You can write a character that's nothing like you. You can still understand them and be empathetic towards them on some level.
And the way that they created the real versus unreal even was very interesting. Do we even know if he's in a fantasy state? Is this part of his reality? And there was something so realistic about this movie compared even to other superhero movies, because superheroes don't exist, right? Like, we don't have
No.
superheroes, and Gotham is imaginary society, but didn't it feel so real and so much like our...
That's what I love about this movie. Like, I was never ever really able to get into superhero movies before, but this movie was definitely an introduction for me. The kind of genres that I kind of nerd out over is like psychological stuff, you know, stuff that has really, especially things that have like really good dialogue, where characters are like interacting with each other in a very realistic way and talking in a way how actual people talk with each other. The movie was just like extremely realistic. Just the actors were really in the moment, and just natural, just acting how actual people act with each other. And in the dialogue, they were speaking how actual people speak with each other, and that's just the best way to make it like as realistic as possible. And it doesn't matter like what genre it is, or people acting in a way that people actually act, even if those traits are exaggerated and over the top, it could still be representative in a way that people actually are in society. You know, in the genres that I'm just not that into very much, but you know, I respect if anyone is action movies or like just like high budget things, I guess. A bit or a visual sensation, like movies that try too hard to just be popping to the eyes with a million like over the top things, like a million guns or like a million this or whatever. Like, that's not usually realistic. Like, that's not how people actually interact with each other.
This movie didn't rely on the action, and I think that is the trap that all these movies fall into. And I think it is the reason that these comic book movies get such a bad rap. And this felt so different and fresh, like I said at the beginning, and the realism of it, and the fact that the Joker wasn't a cartoon character. He was a person. You know, the person you walk by on the street and the person you ignore because you don't want to interact with them. And I think we also all harbor a little bit of guilt to the fact that we don't give people like Arthur the time of day.
Those crazy people where you're just kind of like walking down the street and then someone's just like yelling and then you just walk past them because you don't know what to do.
Or you're afraid.
Yeah, you're afraid. But it's like, yeah, you definitely do feel bad on some level. Or just like homeless people. I feel like there's so many of us out there. We just see so many like homeless people out on the streets and we just feel so bad and we don't know what to do. It's just like, you just see them and it's like, well, it's like if I had the money to give to every single homeless person out there, like I would, but I don't. So it's like you just kind of have to just walk past them, you know?
Even what we were talking about, like the main point of the movie is the fact that it's society against him, and the fact that society doesn't help him and no one helps him. They just beat him down, you know?
Yeah.
And how all he wants is someone to be there for him, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes that's all you need. You just need a friend.
It hits harder because it is so realistic, and because it then invites the audience to draw those parallels between what's actually happening in our world. I don't know. It's not a comic book. It's reality.
Just Hollywood just loves to glorify so many things and like have so many special effects and CGI and things that are just kind of expensive because they feel like that's what people will go see. They feel like if their movie is like visually pleasing, then you know, because like some people only take things for face value, and so sometimes that's what people will only pay to see. If something like, ooh, there's all this action going on, and ooh, they're kicking these bad guys, and ooh, that. But then there's like other people out there that actually want to watch something that can kind of make you think, and that's what this movie does. It challenges you to really, because it has like all these psychological elements, and it has a political message, and it has characters interacting in ways that people actually interact with each other. And so you can relate to it and you can understand and take that into your own life and evaluate your own life, and that you're actually going to the movie for a reason. You're not just going there for mindless entertainment. You're going there to actually take something, to learn something, you know? because I don't like mindless entertainment. I want to go see something that can actually like teach me something, you know?
1,000%. And I think that's the difference between art and garbage Hollywood, is that it's, I don't want to mess this up, but Martin Scorsese commented on the some like Marvel franchise and was talking about how real cinema reaches out and tries it's an artist creating something in order to convey the human experience and connect. I think that the Joker does this, and that's what makes it so good.
Yeah, and that's what good films do.
I think that like the best movies, or like my favorite, are the ones that combine entertainment and art.
I feel like any good art is entertaining. I mean, like it can be both.
But one thing that I was frustrating was that with a lot of superhero adaptations, it's like there's a built-in audience already. Like you're going to have people that are interested in the story, that are going to want to come see the movie no matter what. You already are like guaranteed that you're going to have ticket sales. With some of the other comic books, like there is such a perfect opportunity to like put more of a message in them, and they like wasted that opportunity. Whereas here, like they took that opportunity to talk about something important in a movie that is going to be widely seen and have a lot of interest in, because it is a comic book character, and because it is from this like pre-established, story world. Like if you're guaranteed that you're gonna make money, why not try? You don't have to worry about making money. Why not try and do something to make it somewhat meaningful? And a lot of other movies, they just completely don't even care.
And I thought it was really good, but I think seeing it for a second time and seeing it now that we're in this state of COVID, it's even more, it's just such a different experience. Especially, I mean, we watched it on Zoom and got to like talk about it with each other, which was really fun.
And getting like even more heated politically.
It hits different.
You're in different moments in your life and you have experienced different things. You can go back to it and look at it in a completely different way than you saw it before.
That's The Joker. Great movie. And thank you everyone for listening.
Yes.